it's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. Now, this is a fun show because one, our guest is not a woman, and two, he's not even very old. So talk about going off brand. That's what we're doing. Just a rogue. We're being rogue today. That's what I said to Cindy. Now, here's the reason. Our guest today is Josh Fitzwater. Now, Josh is the publisher of Southern Grit magazine. So hopefully, if you don't know the magazine yet, you will after this. So welcome, Fitz. Now, Josh tells me I should call him Fitz. So I'm going to take you at your word. Hello, Fitz. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. By the way, my gray beard says I'm also old. So not a woman, but age-wise, I can fit in, I think, or at least I got half of it down.
I was a cocktail waitress at the Last Supper, so everybody looks young to me. I need people to know that you are part of, well, they should go to your Facebook page to begin with. And they should look at Southern Grit magazine because Cindy and I are drawn to your magazine, Fitz, because of the content, and two, the photography, which is absolutely beautiful. Okay.
Well, you know, my biggest accomplishment is that I discovered Deb Freeman as a food writer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, yes. I had to go, I said to Cindy, we had recently just taped a second podcast with Deb, but I said to Cindy, now, so I went to your Facebook page to make sure that it was safe to talk about Deb, that it wasn't some secret, because, you know, sometimes people don't want, I don't have any secrets. It's okay. I just don't. I was raised that way. I don't have any deep, dark secrets. Matter of fact, I'm rather shallow, but I wanted to make sure that it was okay that we talked about your relationship with Deb, because you guys are a Facebook official, as she said to me. And
yeah. She keeps me around.
And lucky you and lucky her. And he's also, people don't know this because you won't see this picture, what I'm seeing of Fitz right now, but he has a hat on that says, Virginia is for lovers. Pretty
That's
cute.
Right. That's right. Oh, wait, shirt. I also have the shirt on as well.
A wardrobe.
Oh. There you go. There you go.
Now, answer me this. Yes, we are big fans of Deb's writing. We're big fans of everything that she does. But here's what I want people to know. You have to tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you started Southern Grit, in 2014?
Yes. So since then, we've put out 15 editions of the magazine, and it centers around Virginia food, because until about a year ago, Virginia was not getting the love despite inventing a myriad of American dishes that are the quintessential American cuisine. So it was important. Somebody had to do it. I wanted the headache, so I took it on, basically.
Now, I was going to say, but you had a degree in photography.
Yes.
Did you have now I know Deb had a degree. Deb go to college for journalism?
So see, Deb has real degrees. I have what's called I barely got through high school because I didn't like going to class. And so I couldn't get into any college except community college. I've got 2 associate degrees that do nothing for me. Deb has a bachelor's degree and a daughter that's working on a master's. So they're the educated ones. And due to my lack of education, I get put in the kitchen a lot, and I have to make food for both of them a lot of times.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, let me tell you something. Matter of fact, when you were talking about not going to school, not like going to school, that your degrees were useless and blah, blah, blah. For a moment, I thought you were talking about me.
No.
Don't try to confuse me, because the only thing I ever did, seriously, only college I ever completed, I started a lot. I had so much enthusiasm, and then it would just diminish as I had to get in my car and drive to class. But they kind of scotch taped my degree together from the California Culinary Academies, and they did that because they wanted to get rid of me. Okay? No. I was not their favorite. So I understand that. You know what? I think it's fascinating. I don't think we're all supposed to go to college.
I agree with you 100%. I think that I still wrestle with, is there any point in an artist going to college? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I think that the history part of it, you know, is helpful, but in terms of like finding a vision, I don't know how much college does for anybody on that level. It didn't do anything for me on a like a vision level.
I get you. I think that, and you mentioned it, I think, and this is just me, Fitz, I think that I know for me personally, I couldn't learn anything until I was really interested in it. Do you know what I mean? That's just, I've never been the type that, I mean, I remember people liking geometry or liking, you know, classes. I like history. I like art.
Yeah.
I like music. Do you know what I mean? So that's just about, and I like to cook. But other than that, my husband knows, because my husband, who went to school forever, Fitz is the same type. He knows so many things. And sometimes he says to me, well, you know that. And I go, no, I don't know. He says to me, did you even go to high school? I've gone that day. So I understand. I can feel a kindred soul. Now, listen, answer me this. What's the heart, when you decided all of a sudden to do Southern Grit? So you came up with a name. You said, I'm going to print a magazine, or I'm going to create a magazine about Virginia food. Are you from Virginia?
Oh yes. So I'll try to keep this short so as to not make it boring. So I got into music in a really early age. So a lot of times I was skipping class and going to band practice basically. And I was very in tune with the fact though that a fat white guy was not going to be a rock star, but I really wanted to you know, this wasn't Meatloaf reincarnated or anything. So I wanted to work in music. I wanted to do something in music. I wanted to tour, but I realized I wasn't going to go but so far with it. And so basically I was able to tour twice, and I was very proud of that. And when I got back the second time, I realized that there wasn't really, forget a magazine, there wasn't like a zine, there wasn't, in the Hampton Roads area, there wasn't this like zine for like local creatives and local musicians. And so I created a publication, if you want to call it that, called 757 E-Zine.
Yes, I saw that in your bio, yeah.
And it's centered around music and arts in Hampton Roads. And then eventually, because, you know, again, a fat white guy, I got into food, and we started doing like a food section, and we noticed that there was this huge response to, you know, this food section. And I really didn't see that coming. And it kind of made me want to do more with it. And that kind of started the journey that would become Southern Grit magazine.
I think that it's phenomenal. Are you kidding? It's phenomenal. Tell me this. I know I've been to Virginia, not enough, but I know a little bit about it. Tell me why and of course it was one of the original states in the Union. Tell me about dishes that you think are quintessential Virginian that people may not know that came from Virginia.
So I'm doing a talk at a local library this weekend, and I'm going to ask the question, how many people, be honest, when they think of barbecue, do they think about Virginia? And nobody usually does. They think Carolina, they think Texas, but American barbecue as we know it began here. And I'm not going to talk too much about this because Deb might be roaming around and she gets tired of me talking about barbecue, but everybody that's into barbecue, that wants to know more about the history of it, immediately needs to go read Joe Haynes's book, Virginia Barbecue: A History. It's the most succinct argument out there for why barbecue as we know it today began in Virginia. And it really, when you think about American food, barbecue really is like at the top of the list. And the fact that so many people don't know that it began here in Virginia, in the hands of indigenous people, enslaved people, and rural white people, essentially mingling and bringing different things to the approach to create it to what it is today. The fact that nobody knows that, or a lot of people don't know that, was wild for me to find out. And literally right now I'm working on a documentary about that, and with a guy with Matt Wade, and it's fascinating to me. And I'll say this too.
Please.
People are starting to get hip to this, just like within the last year or two.
Yeah.
It's not that there weren't people screaming about it before. Again, Joe Haynes, a more known person, Michael Twitty, some other people, but I just don't think it really was catching on. And I think now that Texas barbecue, which you could argue isn't even barbecue, I'm sure people hate hearing that, but now that has been around for a while and it's hit this kind of apex, I think people are starting to go, well, where's the next thing? And if you notice in society right now, a lot of things are going back to like, we got to rediscover what was.
Yes.
And I think people need to get reacquainted with Virginia barbecue, and they need to start going into the history of it. And there's so much there to rediscover and explore. And it's exciting to see like author Adrian Miller coming to Virginia 2 or 3 times now, writing about some of the Virginia pitmasters of the past. It's exciting to see that Haynes is starting to be recognized on a semi more national level than just like a regional Virginia thing. We just did a shoot with some, I guess we can't actually talk about it, but we did a shoot with a major food personality that is one of the biggest food personalities out there, who is working on a new show, and they came here specifically to shoot Virginia barbecue. And we did
wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's barbecue. The long answer would be barbecue is something that people should think about when they think Virginia, but they don't.
Okay. Something else? Is there another food that we should be thinking of?
Well, I mean, there's tons. It's interesting because there's a debate right now if yock is actually a New Orleans thing first or a Virginia thing first. Deb has written extensively about fried chicken, and I should say American fried chicken, because obviously the Scottish were doing that first, but the American interpretation of it, I think there's a pretty good argument that it started in Virginia. And like I said, Deb wrote that great article about that. You look at the first chef de cuisine, James Hemings, in Virginia, and doing doing interpretations of macaroni and cheese, I think whipped cream, just a myriad of dishes. We've done dinners in Hampton Roads celebrating him, Deb and I, and his work. And so, I mean, it's more like what dishes didn't start in Virginia versus what dishes did.
Okay. Well, it makes sense because the people that had money, do you know what I mean? Were living there and had help, so they could
help
yeah,
with quotation marks. Yes.
This is typical. I'm 71 years old. So the entire history of America that I was taught has been whitewashed. Thomas Jefferson was supposed to be the greatest man in the world. Do you see? You know what I mean? From what I've been told. So I went to Monticello when I was a child or in high school. They had a field trip and stuff. Now, I didn't know about his relationship with Sally Hemings. I wasn't thinking of them as enslaved people. Okay, their names came up once in a while. So it's so different as you all of a sudden your eyes are open to this. It was horrible. It was immoral. And it's no different. And of course, I equate everything to being a white woman, but I don't feel like the Constitution is correct anymore. I mean, this has been, my husband's an attorney. All he ever says is Denise. But you know what? The Constitution was written by wealthy white men. They didn't care about anybody else.
I think that maybe drawing on my goth influence background, for me, it's not difficult to see that humans are very flawed people. Okay. And so I never had some type of like altruistic idea about the founding fathers of the country.
Okay.
But I will say that I think that when somebody that when I was in college, I guess it's going back to college. So I didn't get my bachelor's because I sucked at math because again, I was not in high school. So I missed,
Yeah.
I was able to, I had like a 3.6 GPA with my history classes. And then anytime a math class came up or a foreign language class came up, I ended up dropping it. And so I didn't finish literally because of being a dope in high school. But I will say that I read a lot of retroactive looking backwards interpretation of art.
Okay.
And I think that sometimes what gets lost is that we look at the past with our eyes now, and we don't always think about what the modes of operation were back then. And then there is this idealized idea about things that are not accurate. But I don't think I'm on the page of like, let's tear everything down. I think I'm on the page of we need to have a real conversation. I don't know how much what we're actually getting is it's more of, in my opinion, it's more of a reaction with vitriol that's understandable. And it's for me a very mixed bag. Again, here's a white guy commenting on this, but I think that we're looking at it through eyes of today, and we don't have a grasp of what the norms of the time were. And so I do think that's a component that we don't talk about because we're very focused on the awfulness that is possible from humans.
You kind of just explained cancel culture to me. Really, Josh, to bring that home, you just described cancel. You said that very well.
Well, I think that it's the way it's been whitewashed is that we until recently have not been talking about James Hemings, and
That's
so
exactly right.
and so it's not that I disagree with what you're saying. I think that these are
conversation.
It's a huge conversation that deals with the flaw of culture, and then at that time men, and then how they were interacting and being in that culture. I mean,
yeah,
it's like saying that Nietzsche had nothing to offer despite being flawed, but he did, but he was flawed. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Or Heidegger, same example. Clearly a flawed man with some ideas that are flawed, but also ideas about philosophy that led to postmodern thought as we know it today.
Okay.
Good and bad. So I agree with you, and I think we could talk about it for 8 hours.
Okay. Answer me this. I love everything you said. So do you cook?
Yes, I have 2 very hungry women that I live with who.
They are lucky girls. That's all I can say. If you can cook anything, Josh, what's your favorite things to cook?
I've really enjoyed making watermelon jam the last couple of years. I've got it down to a science. I think I can say this part. I can't say why.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to give Carla Hall my watermelon jam. And it's funny because she critiqued me and she was correct, except she forgot she was dealing with an old school fat guy who liked sweet, because she wanted me to cut it
I see.
with more citrus. And I had some citrus in there, but I didn't want that sweet to be gone. I'm very much, I got a sweet tooth, like to die for.
I understand.
And so I've really enjoyed making watermelon jam. Deb and her daughter have this affinity for the combination of soy and lime. So at this point, I could put soy and lime on a boot and they would probably eat it. Deb in particular, this marinade that's like 4 ingredients, she cannot get enough of.
Sounds still.
Yeah. So yeah, probably watermelon jam was real interesting to make. I used to make a mean pho. I've had pho that's so good now that I'm almost embarrassed to try to make it.
What about eggs?
Well, that's the mark of if you really have any talent in the kitchen.
That's right. How do you make it?
Well, so here's the thing. My partner, Deb, and her daughter don't believe in breakfast.
Oh.
They literally are like, they will not eat breakfast. So I'm just making eggs for myself. It's done quite well, but they don't know about it. And they won't listen to me about breakfast. They literally are anti-breakfast. I wake up every day and I want some breakfast.
Me too.
And they will not, they are just like, no, we don't eat breakfast. Well, why don't you eat breakfast? I just don't eat breakfast. Okay. And they really don't. The one time I saw Taylor, Deb's daughter, eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I about fell over. And I've never seen Deb eat a bowl of cereal since I've known her for, it feels like 80 years, for 5 years, 6 years, however long. So they don't believe in breakfast. But yes, egg, you have to be able to cook an egg right if you claim to be good in the kitchen.
That's exactly right. Now, we are more alike than you even know, Josh, because we are, everything you're saying, I have to tell you, we are more alike than you know. In the future, so I know you did your watermelon story, the journals, the saga, the stories of your studying watermelon seeds, which is kind of amazing. And people should go back and listen to the first time Deb was on our podcast. And I know that you're even doing something this weekend where you guys are talking about it at a seed conference.
Yes, yes.
And I know you like to garden, and I know you're growing these heirloom watermelons. What would be the next thing you'd like to tackle?
Oh man, I have just started scratching the surface with watermelons. I mean, so the last couple of days I have been scouring over late 1800s, early 1900s seed catalogs, trying to find out if the famous Bradford watermelon that some people are familiar with is one and the same with another watermelon called the Pearson watermelon. Not because I'm actually trying to study the Bradford or the Pearson, but because there's some farmers, a farmer in Florida that's been working on recreating the Florida Favorite, which was a famed Florida watermelon in the early 1900s. And David Shields, who popularized in a lot of ways the reemergence of the Bradford on Mind of a Chef with his great story that everybody should go watch that segment. It's one of the most amazing food segments ever, the David Shields Bradford watermelon segment.
Okay.
So he's made a statement that the parentage, so the two melons that made the Florida Favorite are the Bradford and the Georgia Rattlesnake. Only problem is that I don't know where he's getting that the Bradford and the Pearson are the same, because everywhere you see in these old catalogs, the parents of the Florida Favorite are the Rattlesnake and the Pearson, and the farmer in Florida is using a Bradford and a Rattlesnake to make a quote unquote new Florida Favorite watermelon. So I've been watching NYPD Blue in the background and searching through different catalogs, trying to find everything I can about this. Let me say one more thing, and I know everyone's sleeping out there because I'm talking about.
They are. I'm just saying this. I can see now that you have not moved on from your watermelon.
I do want to say this though. The farmer, Will Crum, if he hears this,
okay,
I respect the hell out of what he's doing, because he's been selecting now for 7 years this Bradford and Rattlesnake cross. So even if Shields, hypothetically, because he's forgotten more about watermelons than I'll ever know, even if hypothetically the Pearson and the Bradford are not the same, a new watermelon has emerged from two great heirloom watermelons to create a new watermelon in this day and age when seedless watermelons and things like that rule the world. So either way, props to Will Crum for creating a really interesting watermelon that I hope to fly down to Florida soon and try and talk shop with him. So yeah, no, I will. I'm going to be busy with watermelons for a while.
Okay. So. All right, and now I know, and I'm going to keep my fingers on the pulse of what you're doing by going to your Facebook page and finding out. Can people get a subscription to your Southern Grit?
They can go to southerngritmagazine.com.
Right.
And we used to average 3 or 4 of them a year, but then when COVID happened,
sure,
we hit a couple years when we only got 1 out a year. We're trying to get back to 2. I'm not doing a subscription thing right now because I don't want to put a hard date on when the next one's coming out, but I believe that will be back up at some point. I know that we're going to release a really interesting, it'll be edition 16, hopefully within the next month or 2.
Great.
And it'll center around a bunch of different Virginia foods that people should know more about. So like we got an article coming out about chicken muddle, which people don't know too much about. It's similar to Brunswick stew. Speaking of Virginia dishes, Georgia claims that Brunswick stew began there. It totally did not. You can go to our website right now, and there's 5 proofs why Brunswick stew began in Virginia, written by Joe Haynes, who I mentioned earlier. Go read that. It's pretty definitive. Another Virginian dish that is quite popular in the South.
What? Now I have to go there and see it. And the reason, Josh, my neighbor is from Georgia and makes Brunswick stew and always brings us some when he makes it. He's an absolute character. I don't think I'm going to bring up that you've told me that it's from Virginia yet, because I don't want the stew to disappear, and it's absolutely delicious. But now I will have to read about that and figure out how I can drop in the conversation one day.
do you know how he makes it?
No, I do not.
Okay.
And I think this is something that he's a cook. He barbecues. He has a big grill out back. We always know because it feels like our backyard is on fire. And his wife apologizes to us, and the dogs bark because it smells so delicious. And I think it's the most charming thing in the world, because I think cooking, to me, Josh, is a gift. Whoever you cook for, even if it's just for yourself. For me, I know that cooking has been the greatest gift I received. Okay, that I learned to cook, that I can cook, that I can nurture myself and nurture others. I think it's incredible. So when anybody cooks anything, even when it's awful, my hat's off to them, because I think it's really, really important.
I'll say this too about chefs and the restaurant industry. When we decided to start Southern Grit, at that point, I had never worked in a kitchen, and I felt like there was something wrong with that if I was going to, put out a food magazine with, at the time, my partner. And so I ended up purposely going and working in a kitchen for a little over 2 years, I think, if I remember that correctly, Novell Kitchen in Norfolk. And particularly with rush and how demanding it is on line cooks and chefs. Hats off to our restaurant people who have a much harder job than people realize, I think.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
And you have to love it, Josh, but it is food. I don't care if you're a stylist, a chef, a food writer, you're becoming a grower, a gardener, anything that's connected with food is labor intensive. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you don't put the pen down at 5 o'clock and close the folder. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You finish one thing and you walk in the back. I used to equate, when I ran a big kitchen, to having a baby. And sometimes the baby was asleep, but then you had to do the diapers. And then sometimes the baby was awake and you had to feed it. And then sometimes the baby just had to go into the playpen. But kitchens, anything that's with, and I'm sure that's very similar to your magazine, all that stuff is labor intensive.
Oh, yeah.
And I have one more question for you. And thank you so much for your time today, your valuable time. What music do you like?
Metal.
Heavy metal?
Yes.
My God. Well, I was actually in the crowd of most of those heavy metal guys when they started out. I mean,
not to interrupt you, but there is no more interesting a mix than going from let's say a Beyonce song with Deb in the car to then switching over to whatever I'm listening at the time. What would be one of the? What would be what? I'm trying to think what annoys Deb the most. I listen to.
So she's listening to Beyonce, and then you're changing the music station.
Well, see, here's the thing. I'm outnumbered, so I'm in the car.
Oh, sure.
It's Deb and Taylor. It's a combination of like Beyonce, Drake. And then sometimes it gets real ratchet. So then it's like Megan Thee Stallion or it gets real interesting. It's can I share one thing with you?
Of course you can.
How crass can I get on this show?
Oh, as crass as you'd like.
You're sure?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And Cindy, we'll see what Cindy says.
Okay, I've noticed the theme, and I have to be careful here because I'm on a very a premiere show that's very much women centric. So I got to be careful how I'm going to say this.
Okay.
But this is just an objective observation.
Okay.
That I have noticed.
Okay.
Every other song that Megan Thee Stallion puts out is about the desire for
I understand.
that she really wants. You know, this is what happens when you live with two strong Black women. You learn the ins and outs of Megan Thee Stallion's lyrics, and I never thought that I would be in that position. But then again, Deb, has had to listen to 9 Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine from front to back, and so it's a trade.
Life is a compromise.
Yes,
Relationships are a trade. I do think, Josh, that you're the first person that ever said fellatio on this, and I'm kind of excited because everybody listens to us are old. Josh, you might have just perked up our audience like we don't even know. Well, now I have a long list of things I have to do from having talked to you, and now I have to play your music. In my car, Josh, when I drive, I listen to Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. I listen to people, they're all dead. Okay, but they're all dead. That's the kind of music. I listen to Stones. I listen to a lot of dead people. So anyway, that's
you know what? You brought this full circle. We talked about
we have
dead American presidents, and now we have closed with dead singers of the past of a mid. Wait, one more thing. Don't ever buy a mid-century modern couch. If you're gonna bring up Sinatra, I gotta say this. They look amazing. I love the lines. Granted, Deb and I could not have been publicly together at the time, which means clearly problems at the time that were not good. But the furniture was amazing.
Yeah.
But you cannot sit on it for more than about 45 minutes. And behind me right now is a mid-century modern couch that Deb and I fought about for weeks on end because I was insisting on this, and I learned quickly it is not a fat boy friendly couch to have. And so if you are into mid-century modern furniture, you must be fit and you must be small if you are going to sit on it. And so I don't know what to do because we just bought a house, and I love that aesthetic.
Josh, when you were a kid, did people say, did your teacher say things like, Josh has a problem focusing? Or do you ever?
I'm sorry.
Has anyone ever mentioned to you ADD, Josh? I'm just curious because I think that we could have been twins separated by about 400 decades because it sounds exactly like something that I would say.
We have a reverence for dead men, apparently.
It all tied up.
Yes, I loved it. You brought it full circle. That's why you're the host. That's why you're the host.
Thank you for your very precious time, and I mean that because I know how busy you are. Now I really know how busy you are. If people want to reach out to Josh, all his information will be on the website. You can reach us at womenbeyond@icloud.com. And Josh, really, I cannot thank you enough. And my head is reeling from the watermelon seed still. I'm reeling. Okay.
Do you want us to try to get you some of these heirloom seeds?
No, because I'll tell you what.
You're not taking it on.
I want to eat the watermelon. When Deb was talking about people growing their own vegetables, and Cindy had a similar experience. A few years ago, my husband had lived in a cult for a long time ago, Josh, when he was a young man. So they had a garden and they grew zucchini and everything. Now, he hated it because they made him garden and he didn't want a garden, okay? But one day he says to me a few years ago, I'm buying some tomato plants. I'm going to grow tomatoes again because we can't get good tomatoes and I want to taste delicious tomatoes. I said, knock yourself out. So we had a gardener that helped us, tomato plants, you name it. Josh, I think we were into it about $800 and we got one tomato.
Well, listen.
We didn't have a good harvest. And I also noticed that my partner in crime, Mr. Green Jeans himself, seemed to be very lackadaisical when it came to taking care of the garden. So we have never done that since. But I'm excited. No, I want to read everything you say about watermelons, but I'm not growing no stinking watermelon.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't think I can fly them to you because they're very.
Our paths will cross, and I'll get to taste them.
All right. If you're ever in Virginia, I will have a watermelon.
What do you mean? I'm sleeping on the couch on the mid-month.
You're not sleeping on that couch. I'm telling you right now, you're not sleeping on that couch.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And congratulations. And I look forward to your next issue. I want to thank you for shining more light on some of Deborah Freeman's writing.
Thank you, because I know that you were one of her first podcast appear. Like that was one of the first times she appeared.
She's the greatest. I mean,
and I know she loves you to death. So thanks for putting up with me for way too long.
Cindy and I are big fans, and you know what, Josh? Everything that we can do to help each other on this little tiny, sometimes ugly planet is what to me is what we're really here for. Well, thank you, Miss Cindy. Again, womenbeyond@icloud.com, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. Josh, look at this. Cindy and I have worked together for almost 22 years. I never knew about 9-inch nails. Never.